Deep in an ethereal headspace, Claire Kagenou flexes her main character lineage while dumping on her younger brother Cid, whom she treats like a background NPC in school hallways beside random classmates, with total annoyance. Smash cut to a luxury restaurant where she stabs a juicy piece of roast beef and enters pure culinary euphoria, raving about the Mitsugoshi food. Cid plays the dutiful beta male brother in a tuxedo, prompting Claire to audit his bank account. When he lies about being homies with the CEO to flex his non-existent savings, he swallows his pride with a fake smile, remembering her annoying head pokes back home. Claire suddenly goes full doom and gloom about her tournament win, muttering about top-tier boss encounters and Shadow's unexpected spawn. Cid ad-libs an over-the-top reaction and fabricates a memory of her cool victory pose, instantly getting pinned to the floor at knife point because it was actually a middle finger, as she frets about his trash-tier academic future. He lies nonchalantly on the floor like a slacker, smirking about his secret identity, leaving her to sigh and pull out a glowing weapon to force recruit him for a high-level raid on the Blood Queen. Cid's inner Chunibyo hyperventilates with joy at the vampire trope. Under a glowing full moon, she marches him through town explaining her spell sword anti-vampire score, leading Cid to question basic undead lore before she clarifies that Lawless Town is the server's last Wild West zone under the shadow of the Crimson Tower. She insists this side quest will boost his knight resume, promising complete protection with a squad leader smirk. Cid detects aggro and sniffs blood in the air, sending Claire into high alert panic as she dashes down a dark alley and draws her weapon on a shadow. A blonde figure turns as a blood-soaked ghoul mob wobbles out and leaps. Claire shoves Cid back and executes a horizontal slash that paints the walls with gore, gasping in shock as the thrall's clothes shred from the DPS. Cid, committed to the ultimate NPC roleplay, drops a world-class, sweat-drenched scream while the pale creep recoils. Claire drops into a defensive stance, yelling at the shadows to step away from her brother, and while she frets over his safety, Cid stutters his line while mentally scoring his S-tier mob performance. They stand over the lootless corpse as Cid asks if it was alone, prompting Claire to explain ghoul lore while pitying the young victim. She laments human corruption and worries about turning into a monster herself, but when Cid tries a snappy mob insult, she violently pummels him into the pavement. Recovering her melancholy tone, she whispers rumors about Princess Rose's corruption and her own childhood curse, recalling black blemishes taking over her body and inspecting her hand nervously. Cid keeps a poker face, remembering he already cured that debuff years ago, and offers a calm reassurance while dripping blood. She instantly flips her mood with a bright grin, leaving Cid staring in dazed disbelief. Calling for night backup, they walk out as Cid looks at the sky and notes the ominous red moon. Meanwhile, high up on an opulent palace balcony at night, Cid's hyper-loyal Lieutenant Beta stands at attention in full gear, notebook in hand, to deliver her status report on their global faction expansion. While she rambles on about new member training, Cid stands dramatically with his back turned, sipping wine like a final boss. Instead of listening to world lore, his galaxy brain internal monologue is completely fixated on his impending poverty and how he's going to fund his Chunibyo lifestyle. He realizes that tagging along to the Lawless Town isn't a chore, it's a gold mine. Popping a villainous smirk at the thought of grinding bandit camps for easy loot. Sensing his sudden shift in vibe, Beta asks if everything is okay, to which Cid turns on the maximum edgelord filter, announcing that a storm of blood is coming. Before taking a slow sip, Beta looks utterly lost, so Cid hitches up the dramatic flair and commands her to gaze upon the moon. Beta looks up, noticing the lunar tint is slightly off as the wind blows, when suddenly, her brain rewires this mundane line into absolute gospel. Gasping if this is the apocalyptic red moon of ancient lore, she immediately loses her mind, apologizing for her incompetence and begging to send the entire Shadow Garden Guild as backup. Cid waves her off with total indifference, stating he'll solo the event himself. When Beta stammers that invading the Crimson Tower without a full raid party is suicidal, Cid hits her with an icy main character glare that radiates pure intimidation, asking if she dares defy him. Beta practically vibrates in terror, backing down instantly and apologizing. Cid casually lowers his glass, which glints in the moonlight, chuckling that a slightly red moon isn't a big deal anyway. He holds his glass out over the balcony against the blood-red sky, dropping a cringe poetry line asking if the crimson night isn't beautiful. Beta's eyes turn into literal star emojis as she starts furiously scribbling down his every word, convinced he's an all-knowing god who casually bends ancient prophecies to his whim. Cid glances back, internally cheering her on for buying into his nonsensical improv and adding "of legend" to his personal cringe lexicon. Right in the filthy, dilapidated gut of Lawless Town, a four-man party led by discount glasses hero Goldo treks through the slums, while Meat Shield Quentin complains about the toxic environmental biohazards. And Goldo warns everyone to stay on high alert. The massive Crimson Tower looms directly ahead as wind whistles through the spire, prompting Goldo to name-drop the vampire boss lair. Goldo flexes over the raid architecture, while Quentin snorts that size doesn't matter, strutting up to the metal gates to claim first clear rights until he spots a cross-legged NPC blocking the zone entrance. Draped in heavy chains, the gatekeeper warns that only high-level players are allowed, prompting Quentin to deliver an arrogant villain speech about taking the Blood Queen's head. The guard chuckles mockingly and hits them with a malevolent smirk, threatening to break them. Quentin gasps as the guard unhoods his bandaged, broken frame to reveal he's the former White Demon, now demoted to a level 1 gatekeeper. Quentin erupts into trash talk, boasting his tournament resume alongside Goldo, while Goldo's spider senses scream that they're hopelessly outleveled. Goldo sweats in pure terror at the guard's hidden stats, while Quentin keeps trash-talking the one-handed veteran and raises his tower shield. Boom! An invisible Frame 1 attack slaps Quentin across the jaw, leaving Goldo screaming his name as the tank hits the dirt. The guard reassures him the meat shield isn't dead, sending Goldo into a rage as he recognizes the legend and debates fleeing before choosing friendship. Triggering a lightning-fast tavern flashback of their shared defeats, Goldo screams in vengeance and channels his ultimate ability, the Golden Dragon Sword. With Quentin's voice echoing in his head praising his untapped potential, Goldo rushes the guard as golden energy blazes. The guard smirks without flinching, and as Quentin's inner memory begs him to stand his ground, Goldo leaps into a desperate high-velocity dive strike. The guard ignores the incoming attack, letting Goldo fly right past him into the alley as he mutters about being a lazy dog and smirks sinisterly. Suddenly, local mob trash step out of the shadows with clubs and pitchforks, leaving Goldo to crash land with a pathetic squeak directly into an ambush. Goldo realizes the brutal reality of the PvP zone as the narrator confirms Lawless Town is the ultimate trash heap of the world.
The video ends here, but the story isn't over yet. Like the video if you're ready for the next part.
Whip pan to the rotting marketplace of Lawless Town, where a stubby merchant shoves a charred rat on a stick to Cid Kagenou. She hits him with an instant rejection, while a shady drug dealer offers high-causing plants, triggering her to snap before venting about the city's total lack of order. Peering down the rotting skyline toward 3 monolithic towers, Cid casually confirms these color-coded structures are enemy territory, prompting Claire to declare the Crimson Tower their raid target. She demands a strategy meeting first, but as she mentions spellsword intel, Cid grabs her and speed runs them deeper into the slums. Claire drags him along like a lost pet while Cid complains, though she refuses to let go in case bad guys kidnap her frail brother. Cid mutters that he isn't a kidnapped princess, right as a slave merchant intercepts them, offering 2 shackled prisoners, Quentin and the White Demon, for 37 million zenny. Claire glares cold judgment at the slave trade and struts off while Cid reflects on the slum trash fire. He glances at the trembling, collar-bound prisoners, staring blankly at their pathetic state as the White Demon whines over food crumbs, completely failing to recognize his former tournament opponents before walking away, hoping they find decent buyers. Night falls under an eerie red moon, prompting Cid to marvel at the supernatural RPG sky physics. Ditching Claire's strategy briefing, Cid sneaks out for a walk to farm the local area. Suddenly, a brown-haired pickpocket speeds past him like a streak of wind, but Cid executes a frame-perfect counter-pickpocket, smugly invoking an eye for an eye. Counting a sweet 40k zenny take, Cid beams with pure greed at this infinite money exploit and clutches the cash to finance his future shadow play. Standing nonchalantly on a corner, a sudden woman's scream heralds a mob spawn as a ghoul silhouette frightens the crowd. Cid prepares his standard mob evasion routine until 2 thugs step up looking for stress relief. One thug snaps a random young man's neck over gambling losses, spraying blood everywhere while the duo laughs at their human sandbag. Cid watches the brutal beatdown in silence, soaking in the chaotic, blood-soaked atmosphere. Realizing normal mob behavior might make him stand out in this high PvP zone, he strikes an edgy hand-on-forehead pose to play the mysterious background boy who chuckles at violence. The thugs finally leave the victim to go grab booze, but the corpse snaps its eyes open with feral aggression and bites a thug's neck in a shower of gore. The thug screams as the ghoul gets hit by an invisible force before getting sliced through the torso, leaving the thug wailing before getting cut down himself. Cid maintains his cool pose against the wall as the ghoul turns toward him and lunges with killer intent. Cid gives a condescending yuck as an invisible strike guts the monster midair. Vampire Hunter Mary steps out, commanding him to run, hitting a combat stance under the red sky while warning that the Red Moon Rampage has begun. Covering his eye like an edgelord, Cid asks for her ID, and she introduces herself as the oldest vampire hunter hunting the Blood Queen. Screaming townspeople flee from spawning ghouls, while a spell sword tries organizing an evacuation until Mary dashes in to intercept the monster. Cid's mental HUD lights up at buzzwords like Rampage and Vampire Hunter, grinning like a maniac as he realizes a major event side quest just triggered and striking a theatrical pose to formally enter the bloody banquet. Smash cut to the chaotic slums below, where panicked crowds flee while a panicked Claire screams Cid's name at the top of her lungs. Surrounded by roaming ghouls, she curses her brother for wandering off despite orders to sit still. She grabs a random mob NPC who rudely suggests Cid got eaten, so she instantly obliterates his face with a direct punch before slumping in grief, praying Cid isn't dead. Suddenly, she spots a blonde ghoul crouched over a dark, shaggy-haired corpse, making wet, crunching noises. Thinking her brother just got turned into monster chow, Claire delivers a brutal horizontal slash that bisects the ghoul. The dark-haired victim's head rolls away onto the cobblestones as Claire pants heavily over the carnage, staring at the dark locks and screaming if the severed head belongs to Cid. Crashing to her knees in total emotional ruin, she shrieks at the heavens in denial, sobbing into the dirt and begging for her brother's forgiveness. Out of nowhere, Mary asks if she's looking for a black-haired young man, causing Claire to snap her tear-stained face up. Mary introduces herself and mentions spotting 2 guys fitting the description. One who was creepily laughing at monsters, which Claire violently rejects because her frail little bro wouldn't laugh like a creep. And a generic, plain spell sword kidnapped by the Blood Queen's goons. Claire gasps as the generic description hits 100% accuracy, shouting that it's definitely Cid. Mary apologizes for failing to save him, but Claire ignores the apology, snarling through her teeth. to demand Cid's location. Mary reveals he's being taken to the Crimson Tower as a blood sacrifice and offers an alliance, which Claire accepts with cold resolve, wiping her tears and swearing to save Cid. The pair duck into a ruined building for shelter, setting down a lantern as Mary confirms Claire's identity and shared goal. Claire asks what's going on, prompting Mary to drop essential lore. Mary asks how much Claire knows about vampires, and Claire notes they've been extinct for 1,000 years. Gripping her sword, Mary dives into ancient history. Vampires once ruled humanity like livestock, until humans figured out their weaknesses, flipping the script and making humans the hunters. Destroying their heart kills them instantly. Lack of blood drains their superstats, and sunlight turns them to instant ash. But just as vampires became myth, a massive catastrophe occurred. The Red Moon wiped out 3 entire kingdoms overnight, courtesy of the Blood Queen, Elizabeth. Claire gasps at the mention of the Red Moon, frantically pointing at the sky outside and asking if this nightmare is repeating itself. Mary confirms the ghoul rampage is just the opening act. Focusing on the Red Moon will grant vampires 3 days of continuous daylight-free stat buffs. Cut to Cid standing in the ruins, looking utterly bored and oblivious to a sacrificial plotline. While back in the hideout, Claire clenches her fist, refusing to let the disaster happen. Mary reveals a secret infiltration tunnel directly to the tower, noting their goals align: kill Elizabeth and rescue Cid. Mary extends a formal party invite, and Claire locks in instantly, sprinting out into the night while screaming for Cid to hold on. Meanwhile, deep in the narrow alleys of the Red Light District, the Red Moon's creepy influence has turned the pleasure quarter into an eerie, deserted nightmare. Suddenly, a dark-coated bodyguard gets absolutely blasted back in a spray of blood from a massive ghoul strike. A local working girl named Marie crouches in pure horror, listening to the stomach-churning crunch of ghouls eating nearby. Her cat-eared friend screams from down the alley to snap out of it because all the brothel's security guards just got wiped out. Marie is too paralyzed with fear to move, trembling alongside another blonde girl. And just as a ghoul looms over them, a flash of steel decapitates the monster in a massive fountain of blood, making Marie shriek. She opens her eyes, utterly bewildered, looking up at a mysterious figure with a ridiculously dramatic black trench coat fluttering in the wind. Standing on the stairs with his sword planted like an absolute boss, Cid introduces himself with his peak Chunibyo speech. "My name is Shadow, one who lurks in the shadows and hunts the shadows." He keeps his hood low, looking incredibly edgy, and tells them to run because the rampage has begun. Marie grabs his cloak, completely confused by his cryptic roleplay. But before she can ask questions, Cid uses his high-speed movement to vanish with a clean whoosh, leaving Marie staring at the fallen victims in distress. Her cat-eared friend rushes over to check on her, prompting Marie to ask about this mysterious shadow. The cat-eared friend stands over her with a serious expression, asking if she knows him. She explains his terrible reputation, recounting how customers say Shadow is the boss of a gang of villains who attacked the academy, destroyed the sanctuary, and have been doing whatever they damn well please. She points out that Shadow's arrival is probably the entire reason the town is currently glitching out, and lets out an exasperated sigh at the absolute mess of their workspace. Another blonde girl stares at a dead bodyguard in terror as the alleyway is revealed as a graveyard of blood-soaked bodies. But Marie is convinced Shadow is actually a hero, defending the weak, which makes sense since every single ghoul in the immediate area was instantly turned into cold meat. Meanwhile, up in the ominous ritual chamber of the Crimson Tower, the vibe is pure Gothic architecture, with a black and white checkered floor and a giant white circle around a central coffin. Lord Crimson and his formal-suited butler confirm that the human offerings are locked and loaded. Crimson looks out the window, noting the Red Moon isn't at peak saturation yet, but gloats that once it is, their beloved Elizabeth will revive. They discuss their campaign progress, and the butler warns that 3 specific high-level players are offering unexpected localized resistance. He pulls up a hologram of the White Tower's elegant boss, Yukime, and the Black Tower's beefy armored ruler, Juggernaut. Crimson shrugs them off, confident that none of these scrubs can stop the Blood Queen's revival or their impending world domination. But the butler shows one final profile, a mysterious hooded figure who has been completely wiping their vanguard units. Crimson asks who this third mysterious challenger is, and the butler warns that this rogue player, known only as Shadow, might actually be the biggest threat to their entire operation. Back in reality, Crimson's face twists into a furious scowl as he spits Shadow's name, swearing that nobody is going to ruin his perfect raid plan. Inside the delusional theater of Cid Kagenou's mind, the ultimate Chunibyo is busy min-maxing his budget, calculating that physical stats are useless without a massive bank account to fund his theatrical debut. He visualizes a gothic throne room stacked with treasure chests because his sister basically told him to go big or go home, plotting a 300-year speedrun of keeping his Shadow Lord status active way into his retirement. This obsessive greed stems from his early game poverty, remembering when he literally scraped up pocket change on his knees and relied on the local megacorp, Mitsugoshi, just to survive. Now, he's fantasizing about the ultimate premium meal of pancakes and expensive red wine, fully convinced that self-earned cash makes the loot taste way better. Smash cut to the grimy streets of Lawless Town, where our boy is harvesting gold coins off mob drops, realizing that farming ghouls is the absolute easiest gold generation exploit in the game. Grinning like a lunatic under a rain of currency, he declares this Crimson Tower event his personal bonus stage. Meanwhile, the local spell sword union is experiencing a total party wipe on the blood-soaked cobbles below, screaming as their frontliners get absolutely shredded. Meat Shield Grain is panicking because the trash mobs keep pushing them back from the Blood Queen boss room, while a dark-haired warrior lady tells him to stop crying and stop ruining their raid party's morale. The DPS squad is already falling apart, with an angry spell sword yelling that he knew this quest was a bad idea from the character select screen, especially since the Crimson Tower's old rule warns low-level players to never aggro this place. Rage quitting the guild mid-fight, the angry spell sword runs away despite Grain's desperate pleas. Boom! Suddenly, the guild leader gets completely insta-killed in a spray of gore, leaving the dark-haired warrior screaming. The rest of the mob loses their minds, shrieking that they're totally doomed. The warrior lady tries to call a retreat, but she's cornered by a massive horde of ghouls and prepares to accept her inevitable game over. Whip pan to a sudden burst of lightning-fast shadow magic as our disguised protagonist drops a Chunibyo voice line, unleashing a massive jet-black whirlwind AoE attack that sends the entire mob flying. The blast knocks a couple of bystanders back like ragdolls, leaving Shadow standing in the dust looking ridiculously edgy. The warrior lady is left completely stunned, desperately reaching out to ask the identity of this mysterious high-level player, while offering her guild's full cooperation. Shadow doesn't even look back, dropping a cold, "Not interested. I'm finishing this speedrun solo" line before walking away. The warrior lady is left staring at his legendary silhouette, imagining him standing atop a mountain of loot under the crimson moon. Right on cue, a meathead named Glenn lunges into the fray with a heavy horizontal slash, moving over to the chaotic alleyways of Lawless Town. A major turf war is peaking as a local muscle-brained brute named Glenn lunges with a horizontal slash. He leaps through the air to execute a lethal jump attack on a smug, fox-eared lady. Glenn is screaming some unhinged threat about how he only came to hunt basic vampire bats, but the vixen fighter just smirks at his absolute lack of manners. But Glenn doesn't care about etiquette and brings his giant sword down to finish her off. Suddenly, a massive flash of light blinds the alley. To Glenn's absolute horror, our hooded main character casually spawns in and catches the giant greatsword with a single bare hand. The brute's jaw hits the floor as he yells about the sheer impossibility of the parry. The fox-eared lady immediately narrows her eyes, demanding to know what kind of powerhouse just crashed their fight. Cid, loving every second of this peak Chunibyo moment, declares himself as Shadow, the ultimate hunter of the dark. He glares at them, basically telling these local NPCs to get out of his way, because his real business is inside the tower. The two local crime lords share a look of pure confusion, but Glenn's single brain cell finally sparks as he realizes this is the legendary leader of Shadow Garden. The fox-eared lady immediately changes her tune, dropping a gentle smile. She casually mentions she runs the local red light district and heard he rescued some of her staff. She even leans in close, offering a very personal late-night reward once the dust settles. But Shadow hits her with the ultimate Sigma male rejection, waving her off because he doesn't care about her rewards or saving random NPCs. Glenn laughs hysterically at her getting completely friend-zoned, but the fox-eared lady quickly gets serious, pointing out that the ghouls have been absolutely decimating their ranks. Glenn scowls at the sky, grunting that it's high time they demolish one of the town's rival towers. A mysterious tall guy in a wide-brimmed hat adjusts his coat and suggests they focus on the Blood Queen before Shadow steals all their potential loot. Right on cue, some edgy white demon character steps up, gripping a massive scythe and bragging about how excited he is to hunt new prey. He rants about how he's finally going to paint the town red under the moon. He even starts explaining his boring, tragic backstory about how he used to be a knight captain before his blood fetish got him fired. But before he can finish his monologue, the massive Juggernaut the Tyrant literally smashes through the brick wall like the Kool-Aid Man. The white-hooded cultists nearby immediately start weeping and crying about how they're completely outmatched. The white demon just smirks at the chaos, trying to finish his story about a woman he was once cutting up in an alley. In his twisted memory, the fox-eared Yukime is standing coldly in the dark. A cultist in his flashback is screaming in terror at her arrival, while Yukime just looks completely bored by the whole situation. He also recalls a seemingly weak guy in a black coat strolling through the alley. The white demon continues his internal monologue about how much he loves the sight of red blood, but his flashback suddenly cuts to him getting absolutely bifurcated by Shadow, blood spraying everywhere. His face contorts into a mask of pure shock. He ends up lying flat on the cold ground, staring at his own pool of blood while gasping in confusion. And as he looks up at the red moon, deep inside the dusty archives of the Crimson Tower Library, the lore master elf Beta is busy farming lore when her concentration is shattered by a series of massive explosions. Giant cracks spiderweb across the reinforced stone wall before Cid Kagenou and Marie crash through the debris like terrible players failing a stealth check. Claire groans about the wall being flimsier than expected, while Marie tells her to watch her step. Beta stands perfectly still, dryly greeting these uninvited intruders, but her eyes widen as she recognizes Lord Shadow's sister. Claire demands to know how she knows her name, and Beta quickly improvises, pretending she only knows her as the legendary champion of the War of God Festival. Claire draws her sword with hostile intent, forcing Beta to introduce herself as a member of Shadow Garden. Beta reveals they are searching for progenitor blood to cure possession, theorizing that the two are biologically linked. Marie flies into a rage, calling it blasphemy, but Beta throws out a massive drive-by deconstruction, exposing Marie's secret identity as the oldest vampire hunter. Marie gasps in shock, and Beta asks if she's still searching for her lost homeland. Claire instantly pivots, asking Marie what she knows about curing possession and pleading for a way to save herself. Marie goes dead silent, and Beta mischievously tells Claire not to worry about it. But when Beta asks why they're here, Claire hysterically cries out that her brother Cid has been captured and is about to be sacrificed by the Blood Queen. Cue a quick mental shot of Cid looking totally clueless, but Beta instantly has a massive tactical panic attack, her hands shaking in sheer horror. Under the mask, she screams in absolute disbelief, completely losing her cool over her beloved Lord Shadow being in danger. She tries to lunge forward in a panic, forcing Marie to hold her back and order her to stay on mission. Deciding they need to speedrun the rescue, Marie drags Claire out of the room. Inside the library, the masked blonde ponytail girl nods in agreement, while the chin-length-haired operative scolds the trembling Beta for her massive slip-up. The ponytail girl warns that they must stay in line and trust that Lord Shadow has everything calculated, looking up at the massive spiral staircase leading to the boss room. Higher up in the tower, Claire is already locked in combat, smashing her blade into a headless vampire in a suit. She panics when the headless mob keeps attacking, but Marie yells for her to pierce its heart. Claire drives her sword home, turning the elite trash mob to ash. Marie analyzes the increasing difficulty of the upper floors, and Claire praises her combat skills, suspecting Marie knows way too much about vampire lore. Marie plays it off as a basic hunter trait, but Claire presses her, pointing out her obvious sympathy for the monsters. Claire demands to know if she's hiding a major plot point as she calls out to Mary and asks what secret she is harboring. Marie deflects, counter-questioning why Claire is asking about possession and why she's so obsessed with the cure, before coldly stating that no cure exists anyway. Claire flinches in guilt, and Marie suggests they both stop prying. Suddenly, Marie hears fighting ahead, and they peek around the door to see the giant meathead Glenn throttling a red-haired vampire boss. Glenn demands to know where Crimson is, scowling with his facial scar prominent. But the vampire defiantly refuses to talk and dissolves into fog. Glenn drops into a defensive stance, cursing the slippery boss mechanic. Claire and Marie sprint away to avoid aggroing him, but they run straight into Juggernaut the Tyrant, who is standing over another dead elite, grinning about his high predator instincts. Huddled behind a wall, Claire and Marie panic as Marie identifies him as the terrifying Lawless Town ruler, warning Claire that he just easily soloed the third strongest vampire boss. Claire is shocked, but her cover is instantly blown as Juggernaut smashes the wall to pieces, looming over them like a max-level raid boss, ready to claim his new prey.
The video ends here, but the story isn't over yet. Like the video if you're ready for the next part.